At the very start of competitive Ultimate, Ike was considered a really good character. This was a massive improvement from the first two Smash titles where he was considered to be not viable competitively. Fast forward to now, and just like he was in the previous Smash games, Ike is now considered to be not viable in Ultimate. So let's talk about what happened. Before we get into it, quick reminder to drop a like on the video. It takes a second, it makes a massive difference on how this video performs in the YouTube algorithm. Now, let's get started. So before I talk about Ultimate Ike, I want to give a quick rundown of Brawl and Smash 4 Ike and explain why he wasn't good in those games. In Brawl, Ike's biggest issue in my opinion was his horrendous frame data. Yes, he had solid range thanks to his massive sword, but all of his attacks except for two had a lot of startup. His two fastest attacks are jab and back air. His jab was actually really good because you could sometimes combo jab 1 and 2 into another jab 1 and get extra damage that way. His back air, while being quick and also very strong, was locked behind his below average jump squat, so you would need to add an extra 6 frames to the move unless you were already airborne. Another issue Ike had was his exploitable recovery. Against players that know how to deal with it, it could be very hard for him to get back on stage. It also didn't help that one of the most popular characters in the game, Meta Knight, could easily take advantage of Ike's recovery in a multitude of ways. Also, thanks to his poor frame data, he was very susceptible to getting juggled. Though his back air is fast, it does not hit below him, and the aerials he does have that can do that are just too slow. So a lot of the times, Ike's only resort to land is air dodge. It didn't help that on top of all this, Ike had below average mobility. He did have his side special, which could help with mobility somewhat, along with getting him out of juggles in some situations, but it didn't completely cover the issue. He had amazing kill power, but severely lacked combos, so it was difficult to reliably rack up damage or have setups to take stocks. It's not to say he didn't have any combos, it's just that the ones he did have were inconsistent to land for one reason or another. Ike in Smash 4 was really not that much different than his Brawl counterpart tier-wise. At the very beginning of Smash 4, I believe Ike was one of, if not the worst character in the game. This was when Smash 4 was only on 3DS and before any patch updates, so I'm not going to talk about it too much, but just thought it was worth mentioning. Once Smash 4 got some patch updates, Ike would no longer be considered arguably the worst character in the game, but he still wasn't considered a good one. Ike coming from Brawl did receive some changes that greatly benefited him, such as his down tilt having significantly less startup, getting more throw combos, dash attack having more kill power, side special getting a huge buff so that you can now cancel the free fall animation if the attack comes out, and getting some mobility buffs, most notably to his airspeed. Even with all of this, he still had the same exact issues that he had in Brawl. Though his frame data became slightly better, it still wasn't great, so it was easy for him to get overwhelmed by his opponent and juggled. His recovery was still very exploitable, so recovering while off stage could still be difficult, though not as bad as it was in Brawl thanks to edge hogging being removed on top of the recovery buffs he got. The mechanic changes did help out Ike in a lot of ways. Thanks to Rage, Ike was now able to take off stocks much sooner if he was able to survive at higher percents. The 2-framing mechanic gave Ike the ability to edge guard better and to utilize eruption significantly more, which also helped him with closing out stocks. The increased amount of hit stun gave Ike some decent combos, including throw combos, as well as setups to take stocks. Relative to other characters though, his combo game wasn't that great, and like Brawl, due to the startup of his moves, landing a lot of his setups could be difficult. The increased hit stun would also work against him since he was one of the easier characters to combo, and it made juggling him that much easier to do since he didn't have strong escape options. Despite the flaws he had in both games, there were 3 things that Ike had which helped him not be a bottom tier character. The first is that he had solid range on his attacks, and because he used the sword primarily when doing moves, a lot of his hitboxes were disjointed. Having disjoints is great because it means you can throw out attacks and it's more difficult for your opponent to challenge what you're doing. The second thing is that his kill power is well above average. Even though he lacked strong setups to take stocks, if he got a good read, he could land the attack he needed and take stocks very early. Lastly, Ike is one of the heaviest characters in the game. This means he can survive getting hit at percents that most characters wouldn't be able to. Though you can argue that him being as heavy as he is also contributes to one of his problems, which is being easy to combo. Another thing is that even if he can survive the hit, his recovery may still cost him to lose stocks early. Regardless, Ike had some good things going for him. He just needed a few more major improvements and he could be an actual tournament threat. Now let's move on and finally talk about Smash Ultimate Ike. At the very beginning of Ultimate, people noticed that Ike was significantly better than he had previously been. There are 2 main reasons for this. The first is that there was a universal change to jump squats. Every character except Kazuya has a 3-frame jump squat now, meaning Ike indirectly got a huge buff. Not only is it easier for Ike to jump in spots where he normally wouldn't be able to, but now he can access his aerials better. The second major reason for Ike's improvement is his neutral air. This move got a massive buff in Ultimate. Not Not only did they change the animation so that the hitbox reaches further out, giving him noticeably more range, but they also reduced the startup and end lag of the attack, making it a lot more usable. This was fantastic for Ike because his neutral air has always been a strong combo and setup tool for him, but due to the startup of the move and how slow his jump was, it was one of his harder attacks to land. With these changes, Ike had a much better time approaching, keeping characters out, landing when being juggled, racking up damage, and closing out stocks. His neutral air had a massive window to combo opponents. It could work from 0 all the way to 100 plus, and you could extend combos on platforms. At the time, Ike was considered to have one of the better punish games in Ultimate, which combined with his great kill power made him a frightening character to get hit by. This was all simply due to being able to utilize jump neutral air as much as he was able to now. He did receive some other changes and buffs, notably his up air also getting a new animation which increased its range and was now his go-to kill move out of neutral air. The move itself could also combo into things and be used to pressure the opponent. Another notable improvement that Ike received was that both his ether and quick draw recovery moves got slight buffs. It's not to say that the other changes he had were bad, but to be honest, the main component to how good Ike was is largely due to how effective neutral air could be in just about any situation now, on top of how reliably it could combo into up air to close out stocks. It did so much for him, and now unlike the previous Smash games, Ike was winning big competitive events. It definitely helped Ike's results that he was being used by the best Smash Ultimate player at the time, MKLeo. At one of the biggest Smash Ultimate tournaments ever, Genesis 6, MKLeo was able to win the event going mostly Ike. This definitely put a lot of eyes on the character and resulted in him being used more than he had ever been in the previous games. There were quite a few players that used him as a pocket or secondary. Another notable player who used Ike a lot in the beginning of competitive Ultimate was Marss. I believe Ike was a secondary for him, maybe even a co-main at the time. Unfortunately though, the Ike popularity wouldn't last too long as people started to realize things about the character. So in competitive gaming, especially when a game just comes out, there are always characters that are going to be much easier to pick up and get results with due to them having a much more intuitive moveset or people not knowing how to deal with certain strategies well enough yet. Ike so happened to be one of those characters that fit not just one, but both of the things I just said. Because of the new shielding mechanic and people not being used to pairing attacks yet, Ike was able to get away with pressuring people with neutral air much more than he would be able to now. Rather than just hold shield and let Ike pressure you with his neutral air, people will now parry the attack or move around it so that they can whiff punish him. Now, I'm not saying that the move itself is bad, it's still a good option for the reasons I said previously, but it's just much harder to abuse and spam the way players would at the beginning of Ultimate. Another thing that made a massive difference on how people dealt with Ike was edge guarding. At the beginning of Ultimate, people would not bother to go off stage and edge guard characters nearly as much as they do now, and the difference meant that Ike would survive a lot longer than he would now. Though he did get slight improvements to his recovery, it was still as exploitable as ever. So there are still a lot of moments to go off stage and edge guard Ike. The reason for this is that although Ike's recovery is overall faster, everyone in Ultimate for the most part is faster in general due to the jump squat change and most characters getting some sort of mobility buff. So because of that, the improvements he got actually just make his recovery just as good as it was in the previous game, roughly. As people got better at the game, Ike's punish game would turn out to be not as strong as people initially thought, and his issues of being comboed and juggled would get worse as players improved and character metas developed, though not as bad as the previous games, as he now has a solid landing option with his neutral air. With Ike falling out of the meta, a lot of the top representatives of the character, including MKLeo, would stop playing him competitively and move on to more competitively viable and meta characters. The real nail in the coffin for Ike was the change made to his neutral air in patch 8.0. They increased the knockback on the front hit of the neutral air, making it an overall worse combo move. This meant Ike could not as reliably close out stocks at higher percents anymore. His neutral air was still a good move, but not being able to close out stocks as easily at higher percents gave him a similar flaw he's had in the previous games, though definitely not as big of an issue compared to the previous games. The addition of DLC characters also didn't do Ike any favors. There were now more characters that could effectively exploit Ike's flaws, and some of them did it even better than was previously shown. It's a very unfortunate way for Ike to go in competitive Ultimate. At the very beginning of the game's life, he was considered to be a really good character. Some even believed he was a top tier, but now with people learning more about the game, patch 8.0, and the addition of DLC, Ike is currently considered to be a low tier, meaning he's just as good as he's been in the previous Smash games. And that is it for the video. Let me know what you think of Ike in competitive Ultimate and tell me if you prefer pre or post 8.0 Ike. Once again, don't forget to drop a like on the video, and if you enjoy my content, hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.